Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, as you can see, I'm on the road. We are in New Brunswick today and we are about 3 hours away from hitting our destination in Nova Scotia. Long drive. But when I got back to the hotel room, I opened up some of my emails and somebody sent me this very interesting letter about two different cases with Norwegian Cruise Line where people were denied refunds for missing a cruise, and there's two kind of similar stories with completely different outlooks but the same results. And I know that the author isn't really a cruiser. It's from the Renault Times, and I do have some explanation onto what happened for some of the questions he had, but wait till you hear this story. How'd you like to be out $61,000? So one family, our first family, booked an Alaska cruise with Norwegian Cruise Line. It was a 7-day cruise with 5-day land tour after the cruise, as well as the flights they booked through the cruise line as well. Well, about a few weeks before the cruise was about to set sail, they got their airline notifications and everything, and they noticed, hey, Norwegian Cruise Line has them booked on the same day for the cruise. And right away it set off red flags, and rightfully so. How many times do I tell people, never ever fly in, especially if you have a long flight. If it's an hour flight, it might be a different story, right? But if it's, any kind of connections or anything, never ever fly in the same day, right? Especially lately, anything can go wrong with the flights, anything. Well, when she called the Norwegian representative, the representative on the phone said, look, your flight is at like 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:41 in the morning. Those flights are hardly ever interrupted because they're the first flight in the morning, the crews are fresh, the airline plane's there sitting at the terminal waiting to go. And so those flights are normally the ones that are fine. It's the flights that come later in the day that all the delays happen. So the lady on the phone said, you don't have to book. You don't have to rebook your flight. Don't worry about it. Okay. First of all, here's the first thing that should have happened. She should have said, no, you must rebook me. I do not want to fly in the day of. And that would have ended it. That would have been the end of it. They would have had to do it. You're allowed to change your flights up to like 48 hours before. Right? If they book you on something that's not going to suit you to get there, or if there's a connection with like a 13-minute connection time to get from one plane to the other, you got to change. I've seen bookings like that. But I'm an independent agent, so I keep an eye out for that, where if you're just letting the computer do the work, like the Norwegians figment of our imagination kind of thing does, well, it just picks out a flight and here you go, that's the cheapest ones and here we go, that's going to be it. Well, needless to say, the flight was delayed because the crew that flew in the night before was late getting in, so that crew wasn't at enough hours to be able to make that flight from where they were to Atlanta. So they end up getting, into Atlanta late, and now they've missed their connection to Vancouver. Well, they called Norwegian Cruise Line. Norwegian Cruise Line said, no, you have to work with the airlines. There's nothing we can really do. You got to contact the airline directly, which they did, and that is true. Even if you book through the cruise line, when you're in the middle of your flights and everything, you don't deal with the cruise line. You deal with the flight, like whoever you booked with, whether it's Delta, United Air, whoever it is, that's who you have to deal with. So they dealt with it, and Delta said, okay, we have a chance. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly you in Seattle, and then from there you can take a quick flight from Seattle into Vancouver, and then you can get there. Well, the flight flying from Atlanta going into Seattle ended up arriving another hour and some late, which means the flight from Seattle to Vancouver already left. So they even tried contacting an Uber to be able to go the 140 miles from Seattle to Vancouver to try and drive there in time to make the cruise. But Uber drivers, most of them don't have passports. And so they couldn't find one because you would need a passport to cross over into the Canadian border. A complete mess. They ended up missing. So now they do call Norwegian Cruise Line and say, look, we've tried everything to get there. We worked with Delta. They did not book us. You know, they even booked us on United to get there, or American Airlines or somebody, but it didn't work out. We can't get there. Can we board at the next stop in Alaska? And Norwegian said, no, sorry, there's a rule that you can't board at the next port. I myself am not sure about the reasoning for that. I've not heard too many places where you cannot board at the next port. But then they said, well, how about our 5-day land tour? What if we fly to the last stop and do our land portion? And Norwegian Cruise Line said, no, you can't do that either. What's the explanation for that one? You've paid for 5 days. It has no effect on whether or not you're actually on the cruise or not. You paid for 5 days in a hotel. As long as you're there when that bus leaves, you should be able to go to the land tour. You've paid for it. This trip cost them $61,000. When they finally got home, after being told no, 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 no all the way and trying desperately to get there, they tried to get a refund and were obviously told no because they didn't make the flight. And they said, but you booked the flights. Now, here's the thing. Norwegian says their policy is, yes, they'll book the flights, but they're not responsible if the flights are delayed or anything like that. But wait a minute. You are responsible to get them to the next port. Are you not? Isn't that part of booking your flights through there? I know with some cruise lines it is. Is it not with Norwegian? Is that what you're trying to tell us now? That if we book our flights through Norwegian, you're not guaranteeing us to get to the next stop? If that's the case, why would I ever, ever, ever book with Norwegian Cruise Line? Why would I not just book it myself? So yeah, I don't get that point neither. But either way, they were basically offered about $2,000 for prepaid things that they paid on the cruise, like prepaid dining and stuff like that, specialty restaurants. $61,000. Weren't allowed to, they booked you at the wrong time, so you missed your flights. They did a bad job booking you your flights, period. They also, why can't I get in at the next cruise port or the second cruise port after that? Why can't I do that? Thirdly, why can't I take part of my land trip? Why can't I do that? Well, no. I don't understand that logic, and I would want a Norwegian representative to explain it to me why they couldn't do the land part. The rest I can try and figure out. But that part of it, no siree. And also, when a customer calls you and says, look, you booked me in on the same day, I think we should change it, there should be no, oh, don't worry about it. It should be, yes, we will change it. That should be the customer service you're receiving, not this, oh, don't worry about it. Because that person who answered the phone, who talked them out of changing their booking, just cost them $61,000. Here's another thing, though. They turned down the insurance. Right? $61,000 trip. You didn't take out insurance. Why, oh why did you not take out insurance? Here's another catch though. In the same conversation, they found out about another lady who had a Mediterranean 10-day cruise. And the same thing happened to her. And she had insurance. The flight didn't make it. It was leaving Toronto to fly to Rome. It left so late that it would have arrived hours after the cruise ship left. So they didn't even get on the plane. And then they contacted them for the insurance, claiming $11,000. They were denied. What they got back was $500 per person, which is what they cover for delayed flights. And he didn't understand that coverage in the article. Now here's the problem. They didn't get on the flight. Had they gotten on the flight and missed the cruise, then they could have said, look, we did everything we could to get to the cruise. We have insurance. Give us back our money. But they didn't get on the flight. They stayed in the United States. So as far as the insurances company, they didn't try everything they could to get there. What if the flight made up time in the air? What if the cruise ship was late leaving? You could have tried to make it. But because they didn't step on the plane, now they have the excuse saying, well, here's our insurance. We cover you for your delay, which is $500 a person. So that person was out $11,000. Well, they got $1,000 back, so out $10,000 even with cruise insurance. So here's some advice. If you have problems, do your best to get to the cruise ship. Fly to the destination, right? Get to the destination. From there, you have a claim. You can't make a claim from in the city unless your flight was delayed like 3 days and you couldn't even leave for 3 days. But then you have to contact the cruise line to see if they can get you to another port to get on that ship. And if they can't, they owe you money. In the meantime, your insurance owes you the difference anyway of the days you missed. But number one, here you go. Always, always, always fly in the day, never fly in the day of the cruise. Ever, ever, ever. And if you're booked on the flying in of the same day, have it changed. Call up the cruise line, have them change it. It's your right to do it up to 48 hours before your cruise. So, before the flight. So make sure you do it. Also, having insurance, you gotta have it. You gotta have it. And if you have insurance, make sure you do everything possible to actually get to the destination and on the ship. Don't just assume, oh, I'm not gonna have it. If it's a medical reason, yes, but if it's something to do with flights or, the ship had to leave early because of weather or something like that, get to the port, then make your claims. Otherwise, you might be like these people and be out between them over $74,000. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let's see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world. Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.